Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining the Invest Hong Kong webinar, your GBA winning strategy via Hong Kong ASEAN edition this afternoon. My name is Stephanie Yao, Senior Manager of the GBA Business Development Team in Invest Hong Kong. The objective of today's webinar is to update our friends from ASEAN about the latest opportunities in the GBA, and more importantly, how to leverage all the unique advantages of Hong Kong to help you to work out the best strategy. So some housekeeping rules before the events. Please note that we'll have time for Q&A for each of the first two speakers, David and Peony, and then we'll have a Q&A session for the whole panel discussion later. So welcome to submit us your questions. Today, we are very honored to have invited a panel of experts to share their insight. Without further ado, may I invite Mr. Law Kin Wai, Director General of Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office, joining us from the Jakarta office for the welcome remarks. Mr. Law, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very delightful to see you all here today. I'm very glad to be part of today's webinar, which focuses on the potentials and opportunities in Hong Kong, in the ASEAN, in the Greater Bay Area, as well as the significant relevance of such to one another. The ASEAN and Hong Kong have all along been enjoying close, multifaceted bilateral ties in many areas, from trade and investment to cultural and people-to-people exchanges. The two places, just to give you a few figures to illustrate how closely connected we are. Last year, in 2020, Hong Kong was the third largest source of foreign direct investment in the ASEAN, with a total amount of $12 billion US. On the other hand, the ASEAN was Hong Kong's second largest trading partner, and it has been like that for a decade. The positive signs continued in 2021 despite the pandemic. In the first half of this year, our bilateral trade in goods jumped to $76 billion US. These figures are very, very remarkable. Of course, over the past 18 months or so, the pandemic has undoubtedly caused tremendous challenges to all of us. Nonetheless, at the same time, it has prompted businesses and investors to look beyond conventional developed markets and to take a broader regional perspective when it comes to value chain and supply chain. This part of the world, where Hong Kong, the ASEAN, and the Greater Bay Area are all located, is one of the few localities with most development potentials and growth momentum. On this particular front, there is in fact a lot of synergy between Hong Kong and the ASEAN. It is the common endeavor of the governments on both sides to foster even closer bilateral ties and to provide a more conducive business and investment environment. The Hong Kong ASEAN Free Trade Agreement and the Investment Agreement are vivid examples of that. In terms of value proposition, Hong Kong does have much to offer to the ASEAN. As highlighted by our Chief Executive in the 2021 policy address delivered earlier this month, and also in the special report on Hong Kong's business environment published by the Hong Kong government, our city presents unique advantages and unlimited opportunities. The enactment of the national security law and the improvement to our electoral system have restored safety and stability in society. The inherent strengths that have been underlying Hong Kong's success and uniqueness remain as robust as ever. Meanwhile, the overseas business communities in Hong Kong stay very upbeat about our city's prospect. Hong Kong is ready again for the new phase of economic development, together with our friends in the ASEAN. Looking ahead, we are particularly excited about the opportunities coming alongside China's mainland 14th Five-Year Plan and the Greater Bay Area development. Specifically, the Greater Bay Area is a development with enormous economic significance. It has a population of 86 million. Its GDP is similar to that of the 9th largest economy in the world. Hong Kong is an essential component of the Greater Bay Area for aspiring entrepreneurs and talents, both domestically and from overseas. It is a direct entry point into the mainland Chinese market and also an ideal gateway to the Greater Bay Area. There is indeed so much exciting development lying ahead. What I have just shared with you is basically a glimpse of the boundless opportunities available in Hong Kong to the ASEAN. Our speakers and panelists are going to go deeper into what these are all about. I hope you will find some useful insight, and I do look forward to seeing many of you in Hong Kong. Once again, very happy to have you all here today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Law. Thank you so much. May I now invite Mr. David Wong to share with you all what exactly GBA is and its latest development and opportunities. David is the head of GBA Business Development Team in InvestHK Hong Kong. David, please.
Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome again to join our webinar on the exciting opportunities of the Greater Bay Area. I have some slides to share with you and on the exciting business opportunity the Greater Bay Area has to offer. Allow us to briefly introduce ourselves. Invest Hong Kong is the investment promotion agency for the Hong Kong SAR government. Our task is to attract overseas companies to set up in Hong Kong and grow through Hong Kong. So, next slide, please. So what is the GBA? The Greater Bay Area is a region in southern China that links Hong Kong with the rest of the Pearl River Delta. This is a map. You can easily see the whole geographical region. It comprises of several important cities. One is Hong Kong, also another SAR, Macau, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. I will briefly introduce them in the next few slides. Just to remind the audience, all the PowerPoints and the video will be shared with all of you afterwards. So a lot of information is covered in the PowerPoint, so but in the interest of time, I will not go through in all the details. So you can take a look at the PowerPoint afterwards. The region, of course, is a very exciting areas with a large population as well as a GDP of $1.6 trillion. To put that into perspective, it is actually ranked number 10 in the world, similar to Russia, South Korea, Australia, and Spain. The GDP of the GBA actually projected to be ranked number 4 by 2030. So it's really a big, exciting opportunities for everyone. We generally like to compare the Greater Bay Area with other Bay Areas across the world. We have this more interesting comparison. We try to compare the number of stores of major international brands. Using an Apple Store as an example, the number of stores in the GBA actually not far away from the number of stores they have in the San Francisco headquarters. So what really exciting about the GBA is, from Hong Kong's perspective, is that Hong Kong is linked to the rest of the GBA in 1 hour or so. We call 1 hour living circle through world-class infrastructure. We have a world-class high-speed rail linking Hong Kong to Shenzhen in 14 minutes, 1-4, and linking Hong Kong with the provincial capital of Guangzhou in 48 minutes. And we can go by bridge westward to Macau and Zhuhai in 40-something minutes by bus and by car. These are the general introduction of the different GBA cities. As you can see, different cities have the different specialties, and I won't go through all of them here. But Macau, obviously, is a world tourism and leisure center. Shenzhen is a technology hub. Guangzhou is a trading port and a provincial capital. So different cities have different specialties in R&D, in advanced manufacturing, and other emerging industries. So what are the roles of Hong Kong in this strategic development? In early 2019, the central government published an outline development plan outlining the long-term and medium long-term development of the entire region. And recently, under the 14th five-year plan running from 2021 to 25, Hong Kong has been assigned three more important roles in addition to the existing four. The usual one, of course, as you're well aware of, the financial center and offshore renminbi center, legal and dispute resolution, value-added industry, and also we have an aviation hub, technology hub, and cultural exchange hub. You may wonder, why Hong Kong? Why don't I go through bypassing Hong Kong and go through and go directly into mainland GBA cities? This figure will show you that Hong Kong has, for many years, continued to be a conduit for inbound and outbound investment in and out of mainland China. Hong Kong sits very nicely in the recently announced dual circulation economic strategy, where there is a domestic circulation and international circulation, where mainland company go global, expand overseas through Hong Kong, and international company, including those from ASEAN, can expand into the mainland China through Hong Kong, using Hong Kong's various strengths. So what are these strengths? Of course, Hong Kong is sit nicely at the southern gateway of China and at the heart of Asia. We have one country, two system, a high degree of economic freedom, a common law system, independent judiciary, and a robust financial system. The tax is very simple and low. There's only 8.25% for the first 2 million Hong Kong dollar profit. And there is no sales tax, value-added tax, inheritance tax, estate duty, none of that. So Hong Kong provide a unique value propositions to companies from around the world. We do a survey every year, and there are about 1,500 international companies use Hong Kong to manage their regional operation. In Hong Kong, you can find a lot of business partners for expansion into GBA and into mainland China. And there is also very easy using the 1 hour living circle to sell your products into the increasingly wealthy consumer in the GBA. And you can also find partners for R&D together with Shenzhen through a world-class university in Hong Kong and a lot of policy grant provided by the Hong Kong government. And last but not least, of course, Hong Kong is an excellent place to raise capital. So I will briefly go through how or what the GBA mean for different business sector. For the innovation and technology sector, there are a lot of new government policies to support the development of I&D and R&D, research and development in the GBA. There are a lot of technology zone all across the GBA that have closely linked with the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. And from Hong Kong, you can tap into all these science and technology zone very easily. And there is a new important project going on in the border of Hong Kong and Shenzhen called the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Cooperation Zone, to be open in 2024. So that really allows the exchange of research talent and research grant and other research materials between the two cities. As I mentioned earlier, the population in the Greater Bay Area is increasingly wealthy. They are in need of financial services as well. So one of the just announced Wealth Management Connect, which is actually operational today, is the Wealth Management Connect. Basically are now individual investors in Hong Kong and Macau to buy financial products in mainland GBA cities and vice versa. So they really facilitate the investment flow between the two regions. And for legal, architectural, and construction professionals in Hong Kong, you can easily hire these professionals to help your company expand and also serve your clients and your company in different GBA cities as well. Of course, the most easy and the first things we recommend our clients to do is to expand into the GBA through cross-border e-commerce, selling your products, your services from Hong Kong to reach the mass consumer in the Greater Bay Area. So to briefly sum up what Invest Hong Kong can help you, we are a government department. As I said, all of our service is free of charge and confidential. We can help you from the planning stage, setup stage, launch stage to the expansion stage. So we offer one-stop service. You feel free to contact me based in Hong Kong, but also our colleagues based in Singapore, based in Jakarta, and in Bangkok. So all of us are very eager and happy to answer your question and help you expand into the Greater Bay Area through Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. We have received a few questions from the floor about the interesting things about GBA. So first of all, they'd like to know how to start investing in Hong Kong and GBA as say for example, a small medium enterprise from ASEAN, how they start investing in this part of the world.
The first step I will always suggest is you talk with our colleagues based in Southeast Asia. They will surely provide you with a lot of practical information for you to plan for expansion into Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we have a dedicated sector-specific specialists who help different sector companies to expand into Hong Kong and help you solve practical problems like opening bank accounts, applying visa for your staff, international school placement for your children. So we offer a whole range of services based in Hong Kong. So I would always suggest come to us, talk with us. We can offer a lot of solutions and also a list of a service provider that can help you expand into Hong Kong and set up your business here.
Will Invest Hong Kong also help us setting up in GBA?
Of course, we are an investment promotion agency for the Hong Kong SAR government, but of course we have close link with our counterparts in the GBA mainland cities and Macau as well. So of course there are also the Trade Development Council who can help Hong Kong company to go expand out of Hong Kong. So there are a lot of resources provided by the Hong Kong public sector that can help you expand your business from Hong Kong into GBA.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much, David. May I now invite Ms. Peony Learn from the Trade Industry Department of Hong Kong SAR. Peony is the Principal Trade Officer responsible for the closer economic trade partnership arrangement between mainland and Hong Kong. So Peony, please.
Hello, everyone. I thank you very much, Invest Hong Kong, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you, the audiences in the Southeast Asian countries, about what we call the Mainland and Hong Kong Closer Economic Partnership Arrangement, what we call in short CEPA today. So this is a very happy opportunity to share the benefits for you all, because the whole purpose of reaching this agreement between governments is to give you benefits, if you give you some advantages to invest in the mainland. As you can see from this chart, Hong Kong SAR government has been very active in seeking free trade agreements with our trading partners. So in the past 10 or 15 years, we have reached a lot of agreements with 8 economies in total. So there are a lot of free trade agreements have been reached with our trading partners. The first one of these is with the mainland of China. That is because China has been a member of the World Trade Organization in 2001, and in the year 2003, Hong Kong and the mainland government have reached agreement of this CEPA, what we call CEPA. Other than this, we have also reached a lot of free trade agreements with our trading partners like Macau, EFTA, Georgia, Chile, New Zealand, and as well as Australia. So as you can see from this chart, the framework of CEPA has been developing over the years. Our work doesn't stop in 2003. Actually, the work is ongoing, and we have been making a lot of efforts to enrich the content of CEPA. So nowadays, it has been upgraded to be a modern one, which covers trade in goods, trade in services, investment, and economic and technical cooperation. So as well as in 2019, the two governments have come together after a lot of efforts, have reached amendments to the Agreement on Trade in Services. So this new agreement, what we call the Amendment Agreement to the Agreement on Trade in Services, have been implemented since June last year, 2020. So these amendments have been implemented very successfully, and I hope that after this presentation, you'll be better appraised of the benefits of this agreement and make use of opportunities in this embodied in this legal text to make your business to reach farther and broader into the mainland market. So what you may ask this question, what are the benefits? What is the relevance of CEPA to my business? So I tell you, the benefits of the CEPA is in many areas. For example, it reduces the restrictions on allowing a greater equity share in these companies when you set up companies in the mainland, so that you can have wholly owned operations, so that you have relaxed in equity share restrictions and also relax the geographical restrictions. For example, you can reach farther and broader in the mainland market, not only in Guangdong, and also you can expand in your business scope. That means what kind of services you can offer to your clients in the mainland market. So what I'm going to talk about is the benefits that you can gain when you set up enterprises in the mainland market, what we call the commercial presence. So CEPA offers you a lot of benefits in a broad range of service sectors. This slide shows you some examples of the service sectors whereby new commitments have been reached between the two governments. The whole purpose is that to set up enterprises in the mainland so as to facilitate your business expansion, as well as the movement of the professionals across the whole mainland market. So in the next few slides, I'm going to focus on a few service sectors that we want to emphasize because there were new measures since June last year. First, financial services. Since last year, there will be no shareholding restrictions as you set up financial services companies in the mainland, including life insurance, futures, fund management, and securities companies. And also you can launch the cross-boundary wealth management connect scheme in the Greater Bay Area. This is an entirely new scheme. And there is some good news in these few days because the list of banks that are able to operate this wealth management connect has been announced in these few days. And also you can make use of this new scheme. The investors in both the GBA and also Hong Kong can invest in more management products over in the other markets without even traveling to the market. So through the banks in Hong Kong, the residents in Hong Kong can buy the investment products in the GBA cities in Guangdong. So as I say, the life insurance company, when you set up life insurance companies in the whole mainland, there is no longer any equity share restrictions. That means you can own up to 100% equity share. And on the other hand, the mainland government has provided some policy support that the mainland insurers can issue catastrophe bonds in Hong Kong. So this new arrangement, we hope to promote the development of the insurance and bond markets in Hong Kong. I hope that more details will be out very soon so that these measures will be implemented to your benefits. Secondly, I want to talk about the medical services. Under CEPA, the Hong Kong service suppliers can set up the wholly owned hospitals and clinics in the whole of mainland. That means this is an advantage over the other foreign investors in the whole world. And on the other hand, there are some GBA pilot measures in last year because the mainland government allowed the clinical use of the Hong Kong registered drugs as well as medical devices in some designated healthcare institutions in the GBA cities. And this good news brings up to the point that the professionals in the medical care can use the drugs and devices they are familiar with and they have got from Hong Kong and internationally in the GBA market, and in order to better serve the clients in the GBA cities. On the other hand, as far as traditional Chinese medicines is concerned, the mainland government also allowed the register and sell in the GBA of the Hong Kong registered traditional proprietary Chinese medicines for external use because they have devised a streamlined approval process. In the past, there are some hassles in importing these Chinese medicines into the mainland. But now I hope that this is the first step that the Chinese medicines in Hong Kong could go globally and could enter the mainland market. For the legal services, we have also a lot of advantages over the other foreign invested legal firms over in the mainland, because the Hong Kong law firms can operate in partnership association with the mainland law firms. That means the Hong Kong law firms and the mainland law firms can operate as one single entity in the mainland. And also we do not have any minimum capital input. So these PAs, what we call the partnership in association, can employ the mainland and Hong Kong lawyers direct in its own name in Guangdong area. So the mainland lawyers can handle the legal matters on administrative litigation related to the mainland law in Guangdong. So I hope that with the successful implementation of these measures in Guangdong, sooner or later, these measures will also expand to the other parts of the mainland. The Hong Kong legal practitioners can be employed as legal consultants in up to 3 law firms simultaneously in the entire mainland. On the other hand, the Hong Kong law practitioners can obtain the practice qualification in a certain area by passing a certain tailor-made GBA legal professional examination in order to obtain the qualification to operate in a certain area in the GBA cities. The first such examination has been successfully held in July in Hong Kong. So on this day, the first examination on the 31st of July 2021 in Hong Kong, these Hong Kong law practitioners, there is no need for them to travel to the examination centers in Shenzhen and Zhuhai. So they can take the examination in Hong Kong, which is tailor-made for them, so that they can get the qualifications. And also in Shanghai area, which is a very pioneer project in Shenzhen, this is one of the pilot free trade zones. So the Hong Kong enterprises, if they are wholly owned by Hong Kong, they can adopt the Hong Kong law in the area of civil and commercial contracts. I hope this is a good news for the enterprises in Hong Kong, which hope to set up enterprises in Qianhai of the Shenzhen area. Next, I want to talk about the construction sector. In the construction sector, Hong Kong enjoys many advantages. The qualified Hong Kong professionals, they can get the qualification in the mainland through recognition, mutual recognition, as well as examination, and they are allowed to register and practice in the entire mainland. On the other hand, again, the good news are in Qianhai, Hengqin, and Nansha, which are the pilot free trade zones in the Guangdong area. These Hong Kong general practice surveyors can directly register for practice in these three areas to provide property valuation services. On the other hand, since January this year, the Guangdong, some piece of good news has been announced. They put in place some interim guidelines for the GBA cities. They even allow the consultant firms on the 2 Hong Kong SAR list. That means the Architectural and Associated Consultants Selection Board, as well as the Engineering and Associated Consultants Selection Board, as well as the professionals hired by these companies. They can directly provide services in the GBA cities by obtaining the relevant qualification through a registration system. That means they do not have to go through the hassles of getting the qualification through mutual recognition arrangement or through the examination. They can directly provide services in the GBA cities of the Guangdong area. So this is another piece of good news in the construction sector. On the other hand, next, I want to talk about the testing and certification. The testing and certification services in Hong Kong have been developed over many years and have gained international reputation. The Hong Kong testing organizations now can undertake the testing of the products under the China compulsory certification system. And these products can be processed and manufactured in anywhere of the world. That means they can make use of the good services provided by the Hong Kong testing organizations in order to get the CCC in the mainland, in order to put up the products for sale and import. The CCC system is a very elaborate system. So it mandates the getting of the certificate for certain around 20 categories of products, such as the toys, the children products, as well as some furniture and electrical appliances. So these Hong Kong testing organizations are there to help you to get your products, getting the required certification in order for the products to be sold in the mainland market. On the other hand, these Hong Kong testing organizations, 7 of them have signed cooperation agreement with the mainland certification bodies to help you. And one of the Hong Kong certification body has become a national certification body of China under the RECEE for certain electrotechnical products and electrotechnical equipment and their components. If you want to set up printing factories in the mainland, this is a piece of good news for you, because the Hong Kong service suppliers can set up the wholly owned enterprises in the mainland to provide printing services for packaging materials. As far as non-packaging materials are concerned, they can raise the ceiling of the shareholding restriction from 49% to 70%. So these businesses can operate with greater flexibility. Next, your question is, how can I be eligible for these HK assets in order to get the CEPA benefits? For you to qualified as a Hong Kong service supplier, either you can be a natural person, a permanent resident of the Hong Kong SAR, or your company is already established in Hong Kong for 3 or 5 years. This is nationality neutral. That means we do not have restrictions on the source of capital of these companies. Your company can be any legal entity established under the laws of Hong Kong, and then you're engaged in businesses in Hong Kong for 3 or 5 years. You have paid property tax in Hong Kong. You employ some residents in Hong Kong for more than 50% of your employees, and you have a business premises. You are not post-box companies. Then you are qualified. So we do not have any restrictions on the source of capital. So you can be investment from anywhere of the world. So in this slide, I want to impress you about the growth of services trade, bilateral trade between Hong Kong and the mainland over the more than 15 years. So this trade volume has been growing from 2004, around 300 billion Hong Kong dollars, to 2019 to more than 500 billion Hong Kong dollars. So Trade and Industry Department in Hong Kong will help you to give the consultancy services for you and to issue the relevant certificates if you need them to enter the mainland market to prove that you're a Hong Kong company, and then in order to get the CEPA benefits. Over the years, we have issued more than 3,350 certificates for over 1,940 companies in Hong Kong. So if necessary, our department can offer the consultancy services for you in getting this certification. The trade in goods under this CEPA agreement on trade in goods, the goods which are produced in Hong Kong, they can obtain the certificate of Hong Kong origin under CEPA in order to get into the mainland market tariff-free. So over the years, we have issued more than 215,000 certificates of Hong Kong origin CEPA to cover more than 127 billion Hong Kong dollars of goods for import into the mainland market. So what you have to do is that you get a relevant certificate of Hong Kong origin for each shipment of your products, and you have to have the factories registered in Hong Kong. Again, we do not have any restrictions on the source of capital on these factories which are set up in Hong Kong. The third part of CEPA, which is of some relevance to you, is the investment agreement. Because Hong Kong and the mainland are already getting very close as investment partners. So actually Hong Kong contributes to more than 50% of the foreign direct investment into the mainland market. So in 2018, we reached an investment agreement. This investment agreement has 3 different parts. It covers investment protection, the admission of investment, as well as investment facilitation. The part which is of interest is the investment protection. That is, for your investment in China, you will enjoy the fair and equitable treatment. You have no restriction on the expropriation, and there is some compensation for the loss, and also there is a free transfer abroad for this investment, as well as their returns. The fourth agreement that we entered into is the economic and technical cooperation. This is come together by the government departments of Hong Kong, as well as government departments of the mainland government, in order to get closer cooperation into 22 areas. And also, for you to get qualified as a Hong Kong service supplier, then, as I said, there is no restriction on the source of capital, as well in the trade in services when you establish in Hong Kong, or in the trade in goods when you establish some manufacturing plants in Hong Kong. If you still have questions, I welcome you to visit our website, which is very comprehensive and one-stop website, and also contact us by email, telephone, or fax, so that we can come to you when you need additional information or you'll have the answers to some questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Fiona. So because of the time, we can only take one question from the floor. But I definitely think that there will be a lot of interest about how CEPA would benefit them. So there is a client asking, is it that means if they're from ASEAN, in order to be benefit from CEPA, they have to set up in Hong Kong?
Yes, this is a very important prerequisite. For every FCA, this is the same. So if you want to get the benefits of this CEPA, which is a free trade agreement between the mainland and Hong Kong, you need to have a physical presence in Hong Kong. So for 3 or 5 years, and to get qualified in the trade and industry department to get this Hong Kong service supplier certification, and then you present this to the mainland government when you want to set up an enterprise in the mainland markets. Of course, we offer you a lot of the assistance in the process. And I assure you that it will be very simple and straightforward process.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Yeah,
thank you, Invest Hong Kong, and thank you, economic and trade officers in the ASEAN countries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, one very frequent question will be asked whenever we share the potential about GBA is why companies should still have a presence in Hong Kong when they can go to China Direct. We are always being asked the same questions. Now I can go to China Direct. Why do we still need to come to Hong Kong? We have invited speakers today from tax, banking, legal, and startup to share their views about how to leverage all the Hong Kong advantages. And I'm sure after their sharings, you will agree with us. It's the sophisticated professional services sector in Hong Kong which make us so unique, and it's definitely one of the reasons why you have to be here to plan for your GBA plan. So may I invite our speakers to join us today? Thank you. So I'll pass the time. David will be moderating the panel. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm David Wong again. Thank you for continue to stay with us. We have a very interesting panel discussion coming. May I briefly introduce our guest speakers today. From the far right of the screen is Jane. Jane is the International Tax and Transaction Service Partner and China Tax Technical Leader of EY. The next speaker is Winnie. Winnie is the Managing Director and Head Business Banking of Hong Kong and the Standard Chartered Bank. Keenan is the CEO and founder of GetLinks, a very interesting startup from Thailand, where he will introduce to you all very shortly. And next to me is Wesley, is a partner of international arbitration from international law firm British Sunderland. So without further ado, may I first invite Jenny to have a short presentation to share with us his perspective on the Greater Bay Area.
Hi everyone, very nice seeing you all on the web. Actually, it would be great to get some introduction on Hong Kong tax and also PRC tax, China tax, to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you invest in the area. Well, for Hong Kong, actually, the tax system here is very simple. We have a very friendly jurisdiction here in Hong Kong. Basically, you can see that Hong Kong have a low tax jurisdiction, but we are not regarded as tax haven because we do impose tax, but the tax rate is relatively low. And in terms of many kind of transaction, we do not impose taxes like capital gain, like dividend. So when you generate profits from Hong Kong, you basically only need to pay one layer of profits tax. And then when you repatriate dividend outside of Hong Kong, you can just repatriate the entire after-tax profits. So that's very friendly. And we don't have turnover taxes like VAT, GST, although our government has been discussing this matter for quite a long time. But at the same time, because Hong Kong is such a shopping haven, we do not easily introduce turnover taxes. Also, Hong Kong is a free trade port itself, so basically we do not have custom duty. So that's why goods coming to Hong Kong are relatively friendly in terms of pricing because we do not impose the custom duty as an added price. And also for company that start up in Hong Kong and then in the beginning maybe there are tax losses. In many countries, they have like a limitation on the timing of the tax losses. So after a few years, your tax losses can no longer be used. But in Hong Kong, we don't have that kind of limitation. Well, the tax rate in Hong Kong is relatively low. You can see that the profits tax rate here is only 16.5. Well, you may have heard about like the globally we are talking about a minimum tax, and the minimum tax actually set at like 15%. So Hong Kong is above that, and so you can imagine that Hong Kong won't be forced to increase the tax. And then for salaries tax, we are relatively friendly as well. You can see from here that the maximum rate is only 15%. So many people, like Hong Kong people, even though we work elsewhere, we always want to be equalized to Hong Kong tax. We do have some withholding tax on royalties, but the rate is also relatively friendly. The stamp duty here in Hong Kong increased a bit recently from 0.2% to 0.26%, which is still quite a friendly rate. And usually it will be shared between the buyer and the seller. So you can see from the chart here that the key taxes in Hong Kong are not a lot. It's just a few items. And so for business community is truly a very friendly tax environment. Well, this is a typical example that you can look at in a typical investment structure for China investment. Hong Kong is being one of the most common place to be used by both mainland investor or overseas investor as a vehicle or as a holding jurisdiction for China investment. One of the reasons to that is, of course, is tax, but at the same time is I think you can hear from our other panelists later on that our financial system or our R&D environment, they are all very, very, very friendly, and the legal system is very thorough. So this is a location that is very common, and for us as a tax advisor, we have a lot of clients that they choose Hong Kong because of the tax system here. You can tell from the chart here that typically for China investment, the withholding tax for dividend is 10%, but if you use a Hong Kong entity, and the Hong Kong entity can qualify as a beneficial owner of the dividend income, the tax rate could be reduced from 10% to 5%. So it's basically a 50% reduction on the tax. So you can compare here if say, for example, in the chart here, if I'm a Malaysian or Thailand or Indonesian company, if I invest direct to China, my dividend or interest income or royalty income, I basically have to be subject to 10%, which is a standard withholding tax rate in China, according to the local rule. And also the tax treaty between China and the different jurisdictions, they do not have a reduced tax rate. But if you can use a Hong Kong entity as the vehicle to hold the investment or being the financing entity to extend the loan, or being the IP owner to charge the royalty, you can tell from here that you can reduce the rate from 10% to 5 or 7%. So obviously, Hong Kong has its merit as a holding vehicle. But China do have this beneficial ownership requirement that basically avoid tax treaty shopping. This is a general situation around the globe recently, that many of them are imposing more scrutiny in tax regime, so as to avoid tax abuse situation. And so that's why in China we do have regulation that imposing certain requirement to avoid treaty shopping. In the rule itself, this is a very famous rule called 2018 PN number 9, which is imposing certain negative factors to determine whether a company is truly the beneficial owner of the dividend or interest or royalty income. If you fail the rule, basically you cannot enjoy the benefits. So that's why while you are using a Hong Kong entity, we also advise most of our clients to have certain level of substances in Hong Kong in order to qualify for the beneficial ownership. And basically you can tell that to qualify as a beneficial owner, typically in China, they look at substances. And we do believe Hong Kong, because of the location of it that is so close to China, it won't be too difficult for you to actually introduce certain level of substances here. So some examples that we lay out here that in relation to finances, our Standard Chartered friend will introduce that part. And then you can tell that as an international city, it's easy to find talents to carry out certain functions in Hong Kong so as to substantiate the real presence here. And also, of course, Hong Kong is such a friendly environment and is so convenient in terms of transportation. We hope the COVID situation improved and people can travel. It's a very common area that being held as a super holdco for investing besides mainland China. So this is basically some introduction on the tax matter. So I pass it on to my other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. May I now invite Winnie, who will talk about how banks in Hong Kong can support your GBA expansion.
Good afternoon, everybody online. Thank you, Jane, for giving a very interesting introduction on the tax matters. And right now, I'm going to give you some introduction about the banking services provided by a lot of banks in Hong Kong, definitely including Standard Chartered, and why it is interesting to invest or use Hong Kong as one of the bridge when you want to expand in China as well. So firstly, a lot of people have asked me, these days, COVID-19, it makes it very, very difficult to open accounts in Hong Kong. In particular, that we need to have a lot of physical presence, and because of the border restraint, we cannot travel. In fact, look for some of these services that can be offered by banks in Hong Kong. In fact, we are very flexible, and we do offer services like cross-border witnessing service to help some of our clients to make the account opening process simpler, and also allow them to open the account whenever they are. Of course, we need to depend on the presence of where you are as well. At the same time, when we are talking about the types of accounts, banking accounts in Hong Kong is very versatile as well. So you can have multiple layers of multiple currencies without any currency restriction, and you can do free FX exchanges, which is very important when we are talking about international business. Thirdly, about the cross-border banking solutions. We offer a wide range of banking solutions, including international trade, where it can be including the credit bills negotiation, the trade facility setup, supply chain financing, factoring, etc., and etc. And for foreign exchange, just mentioned that we have a wide range of foreign currencies that you can choose, whilst different products in terms of FX, like you can have the FX forward contract, options, hedging, etc. And for investments and insurance, banks not only offer investment and insurance products to individuals, but we also have a range of investment and insurance products for different SMEs in Hong Kong. And for some of these products, actually, this can be used as collaterals in return for credit facilities. Next. So in fact, when you are banking in Hong Kong, then will it restrict your exposure to China footprint? In fact, not. And on the very converse, because of the establishment in Hong Kong, it will make it easier for you to also bank and look for opportunities for banking in the Greater Bay Area. Just look at, I'm just quoting the Standard Chartered footprint, but you can also find different international banks. They also have footprints in China for you to have the cross-border relationship. Say, in GBA and Hong Kong, in GBA including Hong Kong, Macau, etc., we have over 90 branches and established in different cities in GBA area. And then for just now, I have talked about the signature verification process, and we have a dedicated team to offer this service to our clients. But the only thing is that it is on a reverse inquiry basis. That means on the request of our clients, rather than directly promoting the service. And apart from that, we are also cooperating with a number of e-commerce platforms to offer opportunities for our clients in both Hong Kong as well as in GBA footprint. Next, when you are establishing in Hong Kong, will you be restrained by the access to some of the information in GBA? Then also look for a lot of the information that we can provide when you set up in Hong Kong about the GBA area. So of course, there is Invest in Hong Kong to help you to share a lot of GBA information, but at the same time, bank also offers similar services. Just like we have established the Standard Chartered GBA Confidence Index, which is also in alignment with another SME Confidence Index, which we cooperate with the Hong Kong Productivity Council. For the Hong Kong one, it will give you an insight about how the SMEs perform and think about their investment environment, their operations in China, in Hong Kong. Whilst at the same time, when we look at the GBA index,
then you will get the same piece of information when we are talking about how SMEs are performing in the Greater Bay Area. And it is issued on a quarterly basis. So you can also look for a lot of opportunity to do networking and co-matching with your partners between Hong Kong and China as well. Hence, in short, what you can find in Hong Kong for a range of banking services when you come to Hong Kong, and then you can also find the same which when you are looking for opportunities in China. In summary, this will include a range of cash management activities, account opening, FX, liquidity management, the lending solutions, be it offered to small businesses or to larger enterprise in terms of trade facilities, supply chain financing, etc. And for investments and insurance, different types of products from unit trusts to different FX, premium deposits, a list of insurance products as well. And last but not least, with the digitization of the banking industry, a lot of these services can now be operated and offered online. So the Street to Bank is our online banking platform for corporates to manage their day-to-day business. So I will stop there and then lead to another panel discussion, which will share with you a lot of real-life examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. May I now invite Keenan, who will share Gatlink's journey as a startup in Thailand, how they expand into Hong Kong and then into other GBA cities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keenan. Thank you for the chance to share a humble experience from Southeast Asia as a startup company that came to Hong Kong to expand. So Gatlinks is a 4 or 5 years old startup company that started off in Thailand. Similar to a lot of entrepreneurs or businesses in ASEAN will be thinking about, whether we stay in Southeast Asia or whether we expand eastwards up to Hong Kong for China market, for East Asia market. We like ASEAN because it's very big, it's very fragmented, it's developing, but I'll share a little bit of our journey of why we came through Hong Kong and kind of what happened. So Gatlinks is a 4 and 5 years old startup company in a future of work and education tech company. And we came to Hong Kong about 2 years ago, knowing that, in Southeast Asia, we've got a few million of these tech talents already. And when we serve the tech talents, we essentially drive awareness to them, especially in the digital world, where the opportunities, where they're earning opportunities, and with the remote work that's happening in the pandemic space now, how should they think about career? So over time, Gatlinks became this portal for digital talents to find opportunities. And at the same time, we help companies grow, build, retain talents. And a lot of times they're rethinking how they're building the distributed teams now. And we're helping them with finding talents, payroll management, and all the financial solutions for companies that are paying their staffs around the region now. So Gatlinks, over the 4 or 5 years journey of our company, we expanded from Southeast Asia through Hong Kong and landing in Hong Kong, and it was a great place to kind of meet a lot of people. So initially, there was a lot of uncertainties, but we realized that it was right to come to Hong Kong in such a small place. We're able to meet so many people through InvestHK. That allowed us to really branch out. So our performance, we kind of 3x over the past 2 years. We have over 20 million people reached and covering 5 markets now. And so therefore, in Hong Kong, one of the key things that I think was very interesting, starting off in Southeast Asia as a small company, is the ability to reach investors, right? or partners or sales. So in such a short amount of time, we're able to bring on board a colorful group of investors from family offices to large industry, the largest industry company in our space, to large tech mega unicorns, to a group of ecosystem enterprise investors that quickly understood our journey and how they could potentially play a role in helping us grow. So when we think about coming into Hong Kong, it's no longer just a city like Singapore, it's really the Greater Bay. And I think over just the last 20, 30, 40 days, the whole concept of Greater Bay has really formalized to be very real, right? So Greater Bay is size of South Korea, 9 mega cities with Hong Kong, Macau, and how do we navigate that? So Hong Kong still has that great first point of access to come through, to establish, to meet the right people, to go through. So Getlings, while we're already a very much Southeast Asian company serving Southeast Asia to East Asia to Greater Bay, we're looking to bring companies from Greater Bay back down to Southeast Asia and vice versa. So if there's any ASEAN companies that want to just kind of learn, Hong Kong is a great place. InvestHK has a lot of resources, the partnership, and Getlings can also help. So Thailand and Hong Kong signed a treaty 2 years ago when the chief executives came. Our founder spoke with the leaders from both sides, but essentially it's where the two markets are committed to sharing knowledge, collaboration, investments. And Getlings is one of these companies that landed in Hong Kong. And for both Hong Kong government, Thailand government, and also the Chinese government, investing in this little humble company that we're building, so we can kind of see the different resources that are available to companies while we're in Hong Kong. So when I think about Hong Kong is a great landing place. InvestHK is a great enabler of creating this launch pad for any companies that comes into Hong Kong. Because when clients come to Hong Kong, Getlings essentially bring them on a roadshow to meet clients, bring sales, and meet investors. And we work with them to sequence the hiring, whether it's a small team and then a second layer and so forth. And we also venture build with the clients to take care of all the compliance issues so then they can focus on building the business and the different financing options that are available in Hong Kong, be it equity, debts. And Hong Kong is really positioning itself as helping companies that comes through Hong Kong to play the regional game, to then expand globally. And that's what Getlings do. And then in Hong Kong, there's all these great ecosystem partners, you know, with a great curation from InvestHK that, you know, we came in here, it was very friendly. People are doing a lot more than what we expected, pointing us to the right places. And then you'll quickly find out in Hong Kong, there's many niche ecosystems, such as if I'm in a tech space, there's Cyberport, there's, you know, Science Park. And very quickly, you'll be pointed to very helpful legal tax partners that are really not as scary as we had originally thought, because they're very big names. We're very small companies, but I think now, you know, the ecosystem's coming together to figure out how to grow with us, right? So the big picture is really Hong Kong. What do we do for Hong Kong? Hong Kong for Greater Bay kind of for the region and beyond. Yeah, and one of the key benefits I see as a small company coming through ASEAN into Hong Kong is that a lot of big companies in Hong Kong, Greater Bay, or China have offices in Hong Kong. So if we're able to BD them, do business with them, that tags along a lot of the Greater Bay and China sales without actually needing to really set up offices across the whole area. So I see Hong Kong as that great single point BD place. So why and when, right? Hong Kong today has always been a gateway to China. Great legal, great tax clarity, fundraising access from seed stage money, $50,000 all the way to IPO funding is really there. And you have enough people that are willing to articulate the fundraising growth journey with you, whether you're seed stage to an IPO stage company. And Hong Kong really is a partnership-friendly place because everyone in Hong Kong is willing to grow through partnering. And because Hong Kong is relatively a smaller place, so I think the game of partnership is relatively easier to understand, and it's actually really doable. But tomorrow, I think what's happening with Greater Bay taking shape is Hong Kong is becoming that gateway to help companies that's coming to Hong Kong to expand into China, East Asia, and rest of the world. And a lot of funding is taking place when we thought Hong Kong have a lot of funding, but China also have a lot of funding. So a lot of these USD, renminbi denominated funds, investors, they're all coming to Hong Kong now, and they're all looking for great projects that already are established elsewhere, such as in the ASEAN, that are coming through Hong Kong that could partner with a lot of these companies, partners that are already here in Hong Kong. So I think Hong Kong is really embracing and pushing some of these startups or SMEs to become unicorn status to serve the world. And a little bit on when I talk a lot about Greater Bay and Southeast Asia, InvestHK also leads a lot of these building or welcoming companies into Hong Kong. But also there's this Belt and Road Initiative that has happened for quite some time already. And that is the road that is establishing a lot of the contact points for companies to kind of move up and down the straits. So a lot of these resources are very much available already. Sometimes it's scary to navigate, to figure out where to go. But we were very lucky. We stumbled on InvestHK, and in the past 2 years journey, we figured out they've really saved us a lot of time. And hence, I appreciate InvestHK for giving us a stage to share our journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keenan. We are now invite Wesley to share with us how Hong Kong's role as an application hub for the Greater Bay Area and for your expansion as well.
Thank you, David, and my fellow panelists having the opportunity to talk about the Greater Bay Area. I feel that we've heard a very positive story from tax to banking and startups. And one of the things that I want to drive home, although arbitration is in the dispute resolution space, there are still very positive things to talk about when talking about the legal foundation of Hong Kong. Now, Keenan had used the word gateway to describe how Hong Kong's role can be within the Greater Bay Area. I would also use the word conduit for investment. So one thing to sort of as a starting point before we dive into sort of how Hong Kong plays as an arbitration hub is to look at the legal landscape. Some of these may be very familiar to those in common law jurisdictions, but may not be known to everyone in terms of Hong Kong's role and how it's sort of made up legally and what that means for those who are contracting with various parties from Hong Kong into the Greater Bay Area or with PRC counterparts. So the first thing to know is Hong Kong is steeped in the English law, common law tradition, similar to those from Singapore or Malaysia and other parts of Asia. It's also a highly regarded judicially independent jurisdiction, which is very important in terms of legal certainty. How do you know the contract you're entering into is what the paper is written on? You have to understand that it's very well regarded in terms of the enforceability of that contract that you're going to enter into. And we benefit from a very independent judiciary to enforce those judgments. And in terms of sort of the working language, as you witnessed today, English is very much the working language, not only commercially, but also legally for us, both in terms of court proceedings as well as in arbitration. So that's a little bit of, the basics that you should be familiar with if you're not already. The other important aspect before I turn on to specifically arbitration is also to talk about the various arrangements that are already in place between the PRC and Hong Kong, which make Hong Kong an excellent jurisdiction for cross-border dispute resolution. So not only just within arbitration, but in other facets. So I think it's also very important, and these continue to evolve and to be introduced between the PRC and the Hong Kong governments over time. So the one that sort of sits in my area as a specialist in arbitration is obviously the arrangement for the enforcement of awards, arbitral awards between Hong Kong and the mainland, and that's been in place since 1999. But other arrangements include that relate to the reciprocal recognition of insolvency proceedings, and that's pretty key, certainly in the financial context, but also in the other context in terms of borrowing and lending of money for investments. And that was introduced only just in May this year, but has already received applications and has been the product of proceedings both in the PRC and in Hong Kong for recognition of such insolvency proceedings. So very important to sort of the legal landscape that we exist in Hong Kong. And then the other arrangements that I want to pick up on is the last one, which does feature quite importantly in arbitration, is the interim measures arrangement. And that was struck in April of 2019 and came into force October that year. So it's just had its 2-year anniversary and is regarded as a game changer for many of us in terms of cross-border dispute resolution between Hong Kong and the mainland. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. So in terms of arbitration, you're really dealing with a very sophisticated jurisdiction through Hong Kong. So that means choosing Hong Kong, not only for contracting, but also to incorporate and to invest through, can be quite significant when dealing with counterparts or counterparties in the PRC, which sort of lends itself as to why Hong Kong can be quite important. It is among the first jurisdictions to adopt many of the important best practices when it comes to arbitration, and I'm referring to the antitrust model law. It is a New York Convention jurisdiction, which means that a award rendered in Hong Kong from an arbitration proceeding can be enforced in 168 different jurisdictions around the world. So that's almost universal enforcement, which is quite important because if you do find yourself in a commercial dispute, you have to know that you'll be able to go after the assets of the other side at the end of that dispute. And there's a mechanism very much in place for that purpose. Hong Kong has just this May recognized as the 3rd most preferred arbitral seat in the world. It is also the home to many of the international arbitral institutions, including its homegrown flagship institution, the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center. It is also has an excellent track record, and this is key, especially when contracting with PRC parties or parties based in the PRC, an excellent track record for the enforcement of those awards. So between the mainland and Hong Kong, as I was speaking on the previous slide, there is an arrangement since 1999 for the enforcement of awards, similar to that of court judgments. And Hong Kong awards, especially HKAC awards, have only refused enforcement 3 times during the history of that arrangement, which is quite significant, which demonstrates that Hong Kong and HKAC awards have an excellent track record for enforcement, which is pretty key when having commercial dealings, knowing that I, again, can enforce against assets in the PRC through this arrangement. Just to close, I want to talk about the interim measures arrangement and how it's being lauded as a game changer. As I said, it came into force in October 2019. Right now, No other jurisdiction in the world benefits from this arrangement. This arrangement allows a party in a Hong Kong seated arbitration that's administered by a qualified institution to seek assistance from courts in the PRC for interim relief. This may include the preservation of assets in the PRC, the preservation of evidence, or the preservation of conduct. So this protects you during the pendency of your proceedings to allow you to secure the assets while you go through the arbitral process. Based on stats from the HKSC just released in September and October, they have received a total of 52 applications, and the total amount of assets that have been secured under this arrangement is in the magnitude of $2.3 billion US. So this demonstrates not only the importance and role that Hong Kong plays for dispute resolution, it also shows the level of usage among parties who are contracting within the mainland. And that could be quite significant for those considering Hong Kong as a place to invest, to know that you have the certainty and the legal framework under your feet when you go to contract and do business within the GBA. I'll leave it there because I know that David has a lot more other questions to ask us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley. Thank you very much for your sharing on the exciting opportunities of Hong Kong as a legal and arbitration hub. So I have some follow-up question with different panelists. May I start with Jane first? Jane, in your presentation, you showcase how Hong Kong is a very simple tax system, whereas there are a more complex tax system in other GBA cities. And one of the topics you mentioned is the beneficial ownership. So may I offer just a follow-up question? So what are the substances the tax authorities in the GBA will consider in general to qualify for the beneficial ownership? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, basically, I can only say that there is no specific rule in China that they are talking about how many people you should have, what assets you should hold. And also sometimes it's also dependent on local practices. But in general, there are many regulations saying about the negative factors that is quite obvious that you are only, like what Wesley has mentioned about the conduit concept. If you are a company actually receiving dividend, but at the same time you have an obligation to pass along the dividend to a third country, that means that you are a conduit. You are not the beneficial owner. But if you can keep the money, majority of it in Hong Kong, and then use it for other means, like having some other investment, either locally or in other countries, then it would be a good demonstration that you have the authority to use the money and then you are the beneficial owner. So usually the Chinese tax authority, they will look at the track record, they will look at the financial statement, they will look at what sort of activities or function that the Hong Kong entity will be carrying out, so as to demonstrate that the real substance of the Hong Kong entity as the real beneficial owner of the income. Yeah.
So thank you, Jane. Really, in your presentation, you mentioned that Standard Chartered Bank has a lot of branches across Hong Kong, in the GBA, and also in Southeast Asia. With a current travel restriction, do we need to be physically in Hong Kong and in other mainland GBA cities to open bank account? With having a bank account already in Malaysia or in Singapore, help the process of opening bank account?
Okay. Thank you, David. Maybe I share a few examples that I have come across in the last 2 years during the COVID-19 situation. A lot of these are coming from China, and some of these are also coming from our Southeast Asia footprint, including Vietnam as well as Singapore. As a result of the travel restriction, a lot of the business owners cannot come to our offices or come to our branches for physical verification. So what we have adopted would be, because we have physical presence, our branches operating in China and operating in the Southeast Asia footprint as well. That's why for these clients, when they raise the request for this type of service, we will operate a signature verification and document verification process for them. And how does it look like is that the client will bring along the necessary documents to the branches in non-Hong Kong footprint, like say for example, Shanghai, and also our Vietnam office. And then our branch staff or our business banking staff will help them validate the documents and do the identity verification as well. After which these documents will be sent back to Hong Kong so that we can help opening the accounts for them. Yeah, but then it is operating on a reverse inquiry basis as a result of some restrictions as well, because as opening an account in Hong Kong, we cannot directly promote these account opening services in other footprints like Singapore. I cannot actively promote I have such a service in Hong Kong. So that's why just now I mentioned in my presentation about the reverse inquiry. We do try our best to facilitate our clients to operate, but at the same time, the clients also have to tell us that what are the difficulties, and if we receive this inquiry on the reverse basis, then this inquiry when received, we can help our client to make this arrangement and open the account.
Thank you, Edith. I'm sure the audience will find this arrangement very useful. Keenan shared with us a very interesting journey for GetLinks. For many of our startups who are listening and watching today, I'm sure they will ask any tips that you can give them on how they navigate the Southeast Asian market, and Hong Kong and GBA market. So any tips, secret tips you can share with us?
Yeah, thanks, David. I think as a startup, especially in Southeast Asia, it's really just getting out there, right? Because as a small business, entrepreneur, SME, we just don't know what we don't know. That's the problem, right? So we hear about Hong Kong, we hear about China, we hear about Greater Bay, but you really never really feel it until you're there. So I think being in Hong Kong, we appreciate even these type of sessions where if we're staying in Southeast Asia, we will never learn, right? So as an entrepreneur, I kind of think of it as, sitting in this panel, it's like tax. We want to set it up as early as we can. It's never too early to get the structure right, but we're busy chasing sales, right? So as an entrepreneur, get the tax right, and then the financing, right? How do we raise as much money so we can run as fast as we can, build sales? So that's what we do as entrepreneurs, right? We think about opportunities, make sales, make impact, but getting the structure right, getting the financing to grow, and ultimately having, Wellesley to cover our back. Inevitably, we run into speed bumps, get into trouble. So Hong Kong is still that place that allows us to grow as fast as we can. It's the closest place, as Wesley said, that's English-based to learn about that Chinese culture. And that is the starting point where I feel that because Southeast Asia is still very fragmented, and if we're going to grow, we need to think regionally. So therefore, we need to come into these clusters and set these type of formation, friendship, and partnerships. So I think that's what I think.
Great, thanks, Keenan. And last but not least, firstly, talk about the Hong Kong's role as a national legal and arbitration center. So, what do you think is the number one or number two, the top benefits of using Hong Kong? And then Hong Kong being so attractive, so many international law firms operating in Hong Kong, would the price be so high that a lot of the startup and smaller companies cannot afford?
I'll take the second part first, David, because Keenan's already raised a few interesting points, especially when it comes to cyber court and the science technology part in Hong Kong. These are two sort of, I would say, incubators in Hong Kong that my firm and other firms have been working with, and they have various programs, I guess more in the legal area, to assist some of the startups. So there is various professional networks and clinics that are being held by Cyberport and STP that include legal clinics, and we participated in those, and that is to assist in initial phases some of these startups, to sort of give them the terrain that they should be aware of when they embark upon their journey. And the hope, and Keenan's an example of this, is they grow and they start having more sophisticated needs. And that's when perhaps the more commercial side of our role as legal advisors comes into play, whether they need a share purchase agreement, or they need to set up a shareholding structure, or they need to set up a partnership agreement among partners for a startup, or they need to link up with VCs or venture capitalists and what contract arrangements. So that's, but we have to play a role to raise awareness about sort of the terrain that they need to be mindful of. Many startups have very good ideas, but to get over the line and the various obstacles, there are various advisors, whether it be legal, tax, finance, that play a very key role in engendering the growth of these unicorns. Startups will become unicorns if I can do that. In terms of features that make Hong Kong an excellent place for dispute resolution, I think the interim as arrangement is the most recent one that I would laud. The other benefit, I think, is a mixture of the fact that it's an English common law jurisdiction, an English-speaking language jurisdiction, which I think is quite important, as we were talking earlier in terms of the fragmentation of ASEAN and Southeast Asia. There isn't sort of, it's not one legal system that's ASEAN. There isn't one spoken language that's ASEAN as well too. And in that regard, if there's a common language, it helps for our commercial dealings. And it also assists to have a legal system that others may be familiar with. So this isn't to say that those in Vietnam, which is civil law jurisdiction, or Cambodia, will necessarily, but businesses in those jurisdictions will be contracting with other parties from other jurisdictions, and they will come across English common law through their dealings, not only with Hong Kong, but also with Singapore and Malaysia. So it's something that they may be familiar with, and having that level of familiarity can be very important when considering Hong Kong as a place to invest.
Thank you, Wesley. And this is a very fruitful and substantive discussion, is very substantive, and there are a lot of things for us to take in. Unfortunately, we are overrun, and we cannot continue this fruitful discussion. And we received some questions from the Zoom chat function. We have taken it. We will take a note, and then we will get back to you or pass them to the relevant speakers for follow-up. So may I now pass the time to Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for our panel speakers today, sharing with us a lot of insight how to leverage all the Hong Kong advantages to take into the GBA potentials. So we are going to send you a survey for to collect your opinion about today's session, the webinar, and we'd like to also follow up with you guys if you would like to have any more information from us. Please feel free to contact us, and we are going to send you today's recording of the whole webinar as well as the PowerPoint presentation. And please contact any of us from Invest Hong Kong in Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, and our Jakarta offices. Or if you'd like to contact any of our panel speakers, please also let us know. Thank you so much.